To good marketing, whatever. Anyway, a couple of days ago, I was talking to that Clado lady. She was talking about her work, and she was telling me that she's got 23 ladies under her and 5 guys. Her department is overwhelmingly female, and they want it that way because ladies usually don't come in too late. They never come in with hangovers. They're much more conscientious than men. They don't pester the male workers and make sexual innuendos towards them, which is always the case with male employees. The only downside, she said, is ladies have more personal problems. A lot of them are pretty irritable and testy during their periods. But that's going to happen. That's Mother Nature. But she says they rarely miss work, even when they're having some bad days like that. Now, you might say none of that is revolutionary or even worth a mention, but this is. She said of the 23 lady employees under her, and remember, they're white-collar workers now, she said of the 23 ladies, 13 of them are single mothers. 13 out of 23 single mothers. That's more than half of her female workforce. And again, they're not low-class barrio ghetto girls. These are educated girls. Which is, she says, another reason they work their asses off, because they're supporting a kid or two. So they've got to keep that job and keep their boss happy. Oh, and she said about 80, even 90% of those single mothers were not getting any support at all from the deadbeat dad. In other words, they were sole providers for themselves and their kid or kids, which is sort of a snapshot of Latin society in general. Now, of course, up in the States with the poorer populations, white trash, people living in government housing, etc., the stats are pretty much the same. But down here, it's true with all socioeconomic levels of society. There are deadbeat dads everywhere. It's just a common theme. Of course, that would all change if Latino governments were able to garnish a guy's wages like they do in the States. Deduct support payments from a guy's check. But that's not happening down here in Latin America. Doesn't exist. Besides that, 20 to 30% of the adult working population are off the books. So that segment of the population gets paid by cash. There's no direct deposit or any way at all for the government to force some deadbeat dad to pay up on his child support. If you're working off the books for cash, there's no check to garnish. Now, to me, one of the strangest things is when I'm sitting down with a bunch of ladies and they're telling me about the deadbeat dads in their lives. Those guys who haven't contributed a dime to their own kids since Christmas or their last birthday. The amazing thing to me is the women, the mothers, don't seem at all pissed off about it. They just roll their eyes and say, that's the way it is. Meanwhile, the guy, the deadbeat dad, will show up once in a while at the house, just to check in with his kid. And the woman, the aggrieved woman, will let him in, even cook a meal for him, let him raid the icebox. I just don't get it. Latinas throughout Latin America are just so used to picking guys who end up being deadbeat dads. They take it as a given because so many of their own fathers were deadbeat dads. That goes for their brothers and uncles, too. What a tragedy, huh? The whole situation is something that sort of irks me. But hey, there's absolutely nothing I can do about it. Which is why, and this might sound harsh, I don't have much respect for Latino guys in general. That's not to say there aren't some fine stand-up guys in great marriages, and when they're not, they do pay child support. I've met a few of those, but only a few. But believe me, when you're down here a while, and you get to know the people, and you find out about 80% of Latina single mothers don't get any child support. Yet the guy comes around once in a while, to check in with the kid. Knocks on the door, greets the kid like a conquering hero. After hearing that or seeing it for yourself, it's just got to rub you the wrong way. Just what kind of opinion are you supposed to have about Latino guys? So then let me ask you this. Do you know any deadbeat dads up in the States? You probably do. Do you have a high opinion of those guys in general? I don't think so. Why Latinas let these guys get away with it? I don't know. Then they welcome the good-for-nothing dickhead into the house and make him dinner. Yet they had the choice to slam the door in his face and say, get the hell out of here, you no good piece of shit. I've heard the excuses too. Well, don't judge the guy too harshly. He's coming to visit his kid. The kid's starved for affection as it is. If you make the deadbeat dad feel unwelcome, he won't come around at all, and the kid will really suffer. It's not the kid's fault. He's got a right to see his dad. Man, these ladies go round and round with that stupid circular logic. They just don't get it. Making excuses over and over for a deadbeat piece of shit. And then, of course, millions of the same kind of guys sneak into the United States and bring all their shitty habits with them. Now, you might not want to hear this, and don't hate me for saying this, but I've met plenty of Latin guys who think it's a feather in their hat to have a couple of kids in their home country in Latin America, and a couple up in the United States too, with different women, of course. That's the point. That macho thing you've heard about with Latinos is alive and well. I mean, look, when millions of uneducated Latino guys with no skills and no career sneak into the United States, what do you think? They go to Tesla and apply for a job? Hang around Malibu Beach or Beverly Hills? They don't go to upper middle class or wealthy neighborhoods. They go directly to U.S. big city barrios, Latino slums, scruffy, ratty replicas of the neighborhoods they came from, where they carry on with the same bad habits. They hook up with Latinas also in the hood from the old country who have the same values, and they pull that deadbeat dad thing all over again. Again, not all of them, but the 80 to 90% of them who come from the barrio who don't have a career or a skill. Just the kind of people you want to invade your country, right? Now, for all you bleeding hearts out there, you can beg to differ with me. However, if you do, I hope you can afford the plane fare to come down, because I'll sit you down with these folks. We can have a little powwow with a half dozen or even a dozen random Madres Solteras, single mothers. And you can sit down and hear their stories firsthand, too. By the way, Madres Solteras is not a pejorative term. It just happens to be the norm down here. Too bad. All right, moving on. A couple of shows.
Now, the clip that you just heard was from Johnny Mueller in the Expat Files, right? Now, I've been listening to Johnny Mueller for about, it's got to be 20 years or so with the Expat Files and living in Latin America. Maybe even more. I can't remember how long. But he's down in Guatemala and Nicaragua, and he's telling you what he sees. Now, he travels all over Latin America, and we know that the highest rate of single mother is in Colombia, is in Latin America. They have a way higher rate of single motherhood than we do. So the tangle of pathology is probably as bad or worse down in Latin America than it is here. But the thing is that you have unstable jobs, you have unstable men because you have unstable environment, and then you have the modern workforce that hires women to be independent. And what you have is very similar results, which is something I was telling Master Yao maybe, got to be like a month ago. This is structural. The structural stuff started back with the Industrial Revolution back in the 18th century. It didn't start yesterday. So you have very, very similar things with single motherhood and women pairing off with their children and leaving their men. It's not unusual. But I wanted to highlight the difference in how the Latin women treat their men versus the way not only the Western, or I should say the Northern American women treat their men, but also especially the black women treat their men. Whereas the married black man that does the right thing can't get respect from his woman in America, in black America especially. You know what it is when you get so-called baby daddy, especially baby daddy that's not supporting the kid. And how much respect he gets? Zero, right? He's the lowest of the low. But in Latin America, she still respects her man. You can tell by the Latinas how, even though they might not have seen him in months or even a year, when he comes around, she treats him like a king, or she treats him with a lot of respect. And when asked, how come you don't cuss him out? How come you don't reject him? How come you're not mean to him? And what does she say? Well, it's more about the kid. If I treat him meanly or I treat him without respect, then he won't come around and visit his child. And her or the child's connection to the father is more important than her feelings. So when I get certain people, especially certain people in Black America that said, all women are the same, and no matter where you go, you're gonna get the same kind of treatment. That's bunk. And I've been saying that for a long time. Your money does not get you respect. Okay? If the woman is raised to respect men and respect her men, then she will. If she is not, she's not. Now, these women down there, these Latin women down there that are single mothers that are not even with the man, have no reason to respect the guy, but they do. Why? Because that's the way they've been trained. That's the way their culture is. And here, you got people like Michelle Obama, who's been married to the guy for 30 years, got 2 kids, and he's at the highest office on the planet, or was in the highest office on the planet. He can't get any respect. And you still think it has something to do with money? You still think it has something to do with status? Really? Is that what you guys still think? After all these years and all these examples? You see the stark difference between the Madres, Solteras, the single mothers down in Latin America versus the baby mamas up here. Vast, vast difference. You can see it. You can hear it. And it's not just one or two, it's all of them. You would never hear that in Black America. You would never hear that where baby daddy comes in after being gone for a long time without supporting the kid, and all of a sudden he gets all this respect. You never hear that. You would never hear where single mothers are working their ass off to support a kid and nobody's complaining. You would never hear that. All you'd hear as a complaint is about child support and him not paying his fair share and how I'm going to send him to jail. In fact, you have women in the United States amongst the Black community that plan on having a child out of wedlock so they can get his money. That's how much respect they have for Black men here. And what do they tell you here? They're on TikTok saying, if you don't have $200 to spend on lunch, or you don't have $200 to spend on a date, don't date. In other words, we can't respect you unless you come with a wallet, unless you purchase us like prostitutes. And you have women like this down in Latin America. Now, I'm not saying that I agree with it, that these men shouldn't support their kids. They should. What I'm saying is that even in the most stark, extreme circumstance where guys dropped off a couple of kids into a Latin partner, to a single mother, and bounced and not supported, he comes back and he's treated with respect like a man. And you can't even get that with a Black woman here, even if you're with her for years every day. Black women treat Black men here in the United States as a resource to be used. And I keep saying that. And Black men keep pushing back. No, that's not true. They love us. They love us to death. And you just are angry and you hate Black women because you can't see it, even though the examples are all around you, all over the world. Some Black women don't travel very well. That's how come their expectation only works with Black men. Their expectations don't even work well with white men, even though we're raised in the same freaking society. So there is a difference between Black single mothers and Latina single mothers. Even here, there's a difference, but especially down there in a different society and a different culture, where money is not the object. Money is not the difference maker. Always culture over money. However she's raised is who she is, regardless of how much money you have, regardless of what your standard of living is. And I always said the Latinas down there give their men more respect when living in a tin shack than Black man can get from his woman living in a freaking mansion. Is what it is. Anyway, y'all, that's all I got for this one. I thought it was a cute story that I wanted to share. And I just wanted to put it up here as an example. So, speed us out, and I will see you guys on the next one. Peace.